Hey guys, Jim here with another video for you. This is Shocktober Vol.4, Ghosts. But before we begin, at the end of this video, if you like what you see, please consider giving me a thumbs up, a possible subscribe, but most importantly, please leave comments below. Let me know what some of your favorite movies are in the ghost genre. Now, ghosts have been around forever in movies, whether it's comedically or as a scare tactic. Haunted houses and ghosts have even been used in cartoons for children like Scooby-Doo. They've been around forever. Okay. And again, if I went through every ghost movie that I have on physical media, we'd be here all day. So what I did was I just decided to go through some of the better ones, not always better, but some of the better ones and some of the lesser known ones that I have on my shelf on Blu-ray. And they're in no particular order or whatever, but I am going to start off with one that really did leave a mark on me as a kid, the Amityville Horror. Now, this came out in 1979, but the book came out earlier than that, and the book was a huge best-selling novel. I read the book before I saw the movie, actually, and the book terrified me because it was supposedly based on true events. This movie stars James Brolin, Margot Kidder, and Rod Steiger. The movie itself isn't all that great. But again, it left a huge impression on me as a child because, again, that book was terrifying to me. And there are still a couple of moments in this movie that still stand up. Overall, like I said, kind of a melodramatic movie, but again, very instrumental in my life anyways as a horror fan. It has been remade with Ryan Reynolds. Decent remake. It's not my favorite of those remakes, but it's not bad. So the first movie is The Amityville Horror. Next, we got some movies from 1980. The first, based on another novel, this time by Peter Stubb. And this is Ghost Story, with a legendary cast of Fred Astaire, Melvin Douglas, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., and John Houseman. And also stars Craig Wasson and Alice Krige. And this was the first movie I ever saw Alice Krige in. Like I said, this is based on a novel by Peter Straub. Very, very good movie. It's a slow burn. But like I said, that cast is legendary. Probably my favorite ghost movie from that year, though, is The Changeling. Directed by Peter Medak and starring George C. Scott and Trish Van Devere and Melvin Douglas again. This is a great, great old-fashioned ghost story. It is very frightening. Doesn't have any gore in it at all. As a matter of fact, one of the most frightening things in this movie is a rubber ball bouncing down a flight of stairs. And as dumb as that sounds, in the context of the film, it's terrifying. I love The Changeling. And our last film from 1980, John Carpenter's classic, The Fog, which deals with pirate ghosts. This film stars Adrienne Barbeau, Hal Holbrook, Jamie Lee Curtis, and Janet Leigh, among many others. A classic, classic Carpenter. Then we're going to jump ahead a couple of years to one of the biggest hits of 1982 and one of my favorite ghost movies ever, Poltergeist. Directed by Tobe Hooper and starring JoBeth Williams, Craig T. Nelson, Beatrice Straight, and it's just an incredible, incredible film. This was one of the first ghost movies to ever bring ghosts to the suburbs. Prior to this, anytime that you had a haunted house type movie, it was always some gothic type mansion or some old secluded, scary looking house. This brought this right to suburbia, and that's what was so genius about it. The original Poltergeist is one of the best movies of the 80s. And then we've got House on Haunted Hill. This is a remake of a classic Vincent Price film from the either late 50s or early 60s, I'm not sure which. But this one stars Jeffrey Rush, Famke Janssen, Ty Diggs, and Peter Gallagher, among others. This movie's a lot of fun. This was from Dark Castle Entertainment. And they did a lot of remakes of old movies, and most of them had to do with ghosts. Not all of them, but they did a lot of ghost movies. This one, Ghost Ship, which is a total piece of crap outside of that at the beginning. The opening scene of Ghost Ship is amazing. The rest of it's terrible. And 13 Ghosts, of course. I like this one more than all of them. Then we got a couple of goofy ones for you. From 1986, we got Steve Miner's directed House, starring William Cott, Kate Lenz, and George Wendt. And again, goofy movie. Real goofy, but very entertaining. I really like House. I've always liked House. This makes it look like it's a horror movie. It's basically a comedy with a couple of horror scenes thrown in. But then we've got this one, and I love this one, The Frighteners. Directed by Peter Jackson and starring Michael J. Fox, Trini Alvarado, and crazy Gary Busey's son, Jake. Not to mention Jeffrey Combs and the wonderful Dee Wallace, among others. People always talk about Ghostbusters, and Ghostbusters is a classic. I don't own Ghostbusters. I like it. I love it. I have seen it way too many times. I gotten sick of it. This is like a alternate version of Ghostbusters, and in my eyes, I know this is going to be blasphemy to a lot of people, this movie's a lot more fun. I love The Frighteners, and unfortunately, it's one of those movies that not enough people have seen. This was originally supposed to be a Tales from the Crypt movie, but they decided to release it on its own, and again, this movie deserved a lot better than it got. And it's very sad about Michael J. Fox with his Parkinson's. This was the film that he finally decided to go see a specialist and got the diagnosis. But The Frighteners, great movie. But we go from a great movie to a couple of crappy movies. This is a double feature from my Scream Factory collection. 2 ghost movies for the price of 1. The House Where Evil Dwells and Ghost Warrior. Ghost Warrior is probably the worst movie on my entire shelf. It is god-awful. The House Where Evil Dwells is an entertaining C movie. It's not even a B movie. It's a C movie. But it is kind of entertaining in like a gnarly way. I guess is the best way to describe it. It's one of those movies I watched a lot on cable when I was a kid. And we've had a couple of haunted house movies. How about a haunted spaceship movie with Event Horizon? Now, again, I know technically this is a science fiction horror film, and it doesn't really have ghosts in it. It's more or less, evil manifesting and finding out what these people's fears are. But let's face it, Event Horizon feels like a gothic haunted house movie, just happens to be set on a spaceship. I've always thought of it as a haunted house movie set in space. Love Event Horizon. It's without a doubt my favorite movie from Paul Anderson, and not the guy that directed There Will Be Blood, the other guy. Then we've got a couple of newer titles for you. This is from Edgar Wright, Last Night in Soho, starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Matt Smith, among others. Don't really know a lot about this one because I still haven't seen it. It's one of the movies I've got to get to eventually and watch. But I've heard good things about it, and I do know that this movie has something to do with like 2 different timelines, but it also has something to do with ghosts. So, yeah, eventually I will check this movie out. And then we've got The Black Phone, starring Ethan Hawke and directed by Scott Derrickson. This is based on a short story, I should say, by Joe Hill, who is the son of Stephen King. And again, it's not necessarily a ghost story, but there are ghosts involved in the plot. I don't want to go into it if you haven't seen it. Really good movie. Check it out if you haven't. But speaking of Stephen King, we're going to go to a couple of Stephen King properties. The first, of course, is The Shining from 1980. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, of course, and starring Jack Nicholson and Shelley Duvall, among others. The Shining's a classic. Haunted hotel. I mean, what needs to be said about The Shining that hasn't already been said? And Mr. King must have a thing about haunted hotel rooms because 1408 is also based on a short story from Stephen King, this time starring John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. And this one is directed by Mikhail Heistrom. Sorry. This is a creepy movie, man. This is a really creepy movie. I generally don't like PG-13 horror movies. This is one of the exceptions. This movie is great. I really enjoyed it. It's more or less a one-man show with Cusack for the most part, but it's one of his best performances. If you've never seen 1408, give it a shot. We're going to end it on this one. The Entity. From 1982 or 83. Where am I? I got to cheat. I'm sorry. Oh, 1981. I was off. The Entity is based on a true story, directed by Sidney J. Furie and starring Barbara Hershey in an Oscar caliber performance, in my opinion. She is incredible in this movie. And this movie is an incredible hard watch. I saw this theatrically with my mom. I was about 14, going on 15 or so. And the hook on this movie is the ghost. I hope I don't get canceled by YouTube, but the ghost is a rapist. And he is constantly assaulting Barbara Hershey's character. To the point where even if she leaves the house and goes somewhere else, the moment she's alone, this ghost is attacking her. And it is creepy as hell. It's extremely difficult to watch. One scene in particular. But again, Barbara Hershey gives a tour de force performance in this film. This is my Scream Factory Blu-ray, which I believe just went out of print. But it is still available on streaming services, and I don't know if it ever got a UK release or not. But The Entity, like I said, it's not the type of movie that I would recommend to somebody and say, hey, you want to see a really thrilling, fun time? Check this out. No, far from it. This movie, again, it's dark and it's extremely, extremely difficult to watch in places. But again, if you have not seen it, and I haven't scared you off by my description of it, by all means, check it out. It is definitely a well worth watch. It's an extremely well-made movie. And again, Barbara Hershey's performance is incredible. That's how we're going to end this video on Ghosts for Volume 4, Shocktober. While I got you here, I want to mention that Scream Factory's Shocktober sale is going on right now. And I believe it's going through the 15th. You can double check on that. And I would say about 90% of the titles in their catalog are on sale right now. Some deals are better than others, but check that out if you get a chance. I am not affiliated with Shout Factory in any way, shape, or form. I do not make a dime off of this. It's just, again, they're one of my favorite labels, and I like to let my subscribers know and viewers know that if there's a chance for them to see a couple of movies from my collection that they want to check out, and they could save a couple of bucks on it, by all means, go for it. So I hope everybody's having a great weekend, and we'll catch you on the next one.